You are listening to the Be a Better Being podcast, hosted by the founder of Better Beings, Michelle Zellner. Michelle's experiences have equipped her with knowledge and perspective, and for nearly 3 decades, she has been informing, influencing, and inspiring thousands on their journeys. This show spotlights guests of diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise, but they all align with Michelle's purpose and passion to help you be a better human being. There is something for everyone on their way to a healthier, happier life. Enjoy the show.
Greetings. Thank you for tuning in to the Be a Better Being podcast. This is episode 141, released on August 4th. And happy National Wellness Month. Every month is Wellness Month in my world, but it's fun to get to have yet another reason to highlight all the facets of well-being. And today's guest can certainly speak to this. After surviving a heart attack at age 31, Carrie Lehtonen left the corporate world to pursue her passion. She's the author of Pawsitive Perspectives, Insights from the Point of View of Her Rescue Dog, and the founder of Firefly Community, a wellness business designed to guide people toward a healthier, happier life. Speaking my language, Carrie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's great to see you.
Well, it's really great to have you here. I mean, I feel like we need to just start with a heart attack at 31. Wow. Let's maybe, give a little background and then leading up to this 31-year-old you having a heart attack, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. I knew I had a family history of heart disease. My father had his first heart attack when he was 42 years old. But I thought I was doing the right things. I was always very physically active. I thought I ate pretty well. But in July of 2009, I was on a 60-mile bike ride with friends, which wasn't unusual for me to be riding my bike that far. I had actually just done a 150-mile ride the weekend before. And throughout the ride, I was experiencing things that at the time I had no idea had anything to do with my heart. First, I just felt a little lightheaded, so I thought maybe I just didn't eat enough for breakfast. And then as the ride continued, I started to feel indigestion, which I don't normally experience, so that was a little odd. But I kept riding, and I experienced neck and shoulder pain, which I thought maybe my position is just a little funny on the bike, so I kept going. And in the last 10 miles or so of the ride is when I started to experience pressure in my chest. And it still wasn't a sharp pain, so I wasn't super alarmed, but just felt kind of odd. And that's what persisted even when we got back to my friend's house. And lucky for me, my friend did not take no for an answer when he insisted that we go to the hospital. We went into the emergency room, waited for about an hour to even be seen by a doctor. And once I did get in, they were testing all kinds of other things, told me to drink a GI cocktail. They thought something was going on with my gallbladder, and I still was not feeling any better. And finally, the doctor looked at my chart and said, "Oh, you have a family history of heart disease." And as soon as he said that, I knew that that's what was happening, but he must have seen the change in my face because he said, "It's probably nothing. We just want to rule it out." And they ran a blood test and found that my heart was in distress. So they still couldn't tell me what exactly was happening, but they went into emergency mode, called in the cardiologist. It turns out I had a blood clot in my coronary artery, and the cardiologist told me if I hadn't come in that night, I would not have woken up in the morning. So pretty impactful words for someone who was 31 and thought I was doing the right things.
Well, and you were doing the right things. I mean, that's the thing, right? To some degree, right? Exercising, eating what you thought to be healthy. We can maybe dive into that. But it really highlights the reason we need to know family history. And especially if you have a first degree relative who had a heart attack under the age of 50, right? That's a different kind of category of risk factor than if your 78-year-old dad or mom had a heart attack, right? So knowing that was in your family history, pretty significant. And I mean, I'm so glad you're here, but I want to tell everybody, you're having things like that. I know nobody wants to make that stupid 3-digit phone call. I know, trust, I just called 911 on myself earlier this year. I get it. You wait for an hour in the emergency room to be seen. You call 911, they're seeing you immediately. So luckily for you, you had a little extra time to get to take care of it. A lot of people, that might not be the case. So I am just going to put the PSA out there right now. You are experiencing symptoms like what Carrie's describing. And yes, they could have been any of those things, But to have all of those things happen all at the same time, like nothing really makes sense that, odd positioning would cause indigestion, right? But this is what we do. I think it's what humans do. It's definitely what women do. We justify or we dismiss or we just look for some other reason that this must be happening. And why would you think it's a heart attack at 31, right? And yet when you understand the signs, the symptoms, all the things, and maybe you have a little family history that you know about, obviously we need to know our numbers and all those things as well, which my guess is yours were probably pretty good because of blood clot in the coronary artery. I mean, maybe when you had your last checkup, it wasn't there. So blood pressure was fine, cholesterol was fine, right? All the markers we look for. But this is why being tuned into your body is so important. And I know regular listeners, every February, Heart Health Awareness Month, I have a heart survivor. You've heard stories just like this. I think, Carrie, you get the gold star for the youngest. But it really is so important to be paying attention and to understand the warning signs. And then if you're having any kind of issues, I know, believe me, I get it. It's an expensive phone call to make, and yet might be the one that actually saves your life, right? So let's go back to now you had this issue, big old wake-up call. How does life change for you after that?
Yeah, it actually was probably the wake-up call that I needed. I was working in a really stressful job and doing all the things that I thought I was supposed to do to be successful, in terms of getting promotions and, working my way up the corporate ladder. But after my heart attack, I realized that I wasn't really that happy doing what I was doing. I worked in human resources, and at the time I was working in compensation in a really stressful environment where we were always understaffed and just always working really hard. But I also didn't know what else to do at the time because that was my education in college. That's what I had been doing in my career so far. But I also wanted to learn more about what I could do to protect my own heart and how I could help others, because after my heart attack, I got connected with the American Heart Association and learned that heart disease is the number 1 killer of women in the United States as well as men. I think a lot of us tend to think of heart disease as a man's disease. And the other thing I learned was that 80% is preventable with lifestyle changes. So I saw that as something that I could maybe have some impact in helping to change and helping other women learn about what are the risk factors, what are the different symptoms, because women's symptom of heart attack is very different than men. So I just started going through and educating myself. I went through a program to become a holistic health practitioner. So that involved learning about life coaching methods and nutrition. I started transitioning myself to a plant-based diet. It took me some time to get there. I grew up in New Hampshire with a kind of meat and potatoes kind of background. So I took time to make that transition. But over time, I was able to actually reduce all of the prescription medication that I was taking and help manage my heart disease with diet and with also managing my stress. So during all this, I also discovered yoga, and that's when everything really came together for me, of the heart, mind, body connection and spirit connection as well. And just learning how to effectively manage my stress. I transitioned to a different job that was a lot less stress for me. I was able to work from home and have a lot more control over my schedule, which allowed me to pursue all these other avenues of becoming a health coach and becoming a yoga teacher. And I just started kind of gradually bringing all that into my life. And it took me a long time. It was a long journey, but over that time, I eventually decided to start my own business, Firefly Community, to start helping other people learn how to be healthier and happier. And in 2018, I finally left the corporate world to focus full-time on my business.
I mean, this might sound a little odd, but how lucky are you that you had a heart attack at 31? To get to figure that out, obviously, because you made it through, right? But to get to understand sooner rather than later what that kind of lifestyle can do to somebody who already has a genetic predisposition for maybe a significant heart-related event. American Heart Association celebrated 100 years in 2024 and 20 years of Go Red for Women. I've been a very strong proponent and advocate and ally with American Heart Association for quite some time. And we have all this awareness, heart health awareness, Go Red for Women. And that people still don't know that heart disease is the number one killer of women. That we still like think, oh, it must be cancer. No, you add up every single cancer in the world, doesn't come close to heart disease. To your point, oh, it's a man's disease. We still have visions of like the heart attack. That is rare, right? That's not what yours was. And so we have this awareness. We talk about it. We do the heart walk. We do the luncheons. We do the you-rah-rah. And almost nothing changes, right? Like we're still seeing so many people be impacted. So what was it about you that decided, okay, I mean, maybe it was like that near-death experience. And I mean, hopefully it doesn't need to get there, right? I think the message I want to get to people is let's not wait until you have a heart attack to decide that, oh, I should do something. So what are some of those, obviously managing the stress, right? That was a big one. And we've been talking so much more about stress and how we know that that is one of the foundational elements that, man, if you are chronically stressed, it's a big domino that is going to knock down so many other dominoes that are not going to be helpful. I'm 52, Gen Xer. You're not that much younger than me, but we didn't talk about these things back then. We certainly didn't talk about it in the workplace. In fact, I think a lot of people wore their stress as a badge of honor, right? I'm a go-getter. I'm so driven. I'm working really hard. I'm doing all the things, right? We celebrate it. So I think we've come a long way when it comes to kind of that mindset, but there's still some people who don't believe it. Oh, that won't be me, right? I can handle it. This is just what you have to do. In the 9 years between having the heart attack and then leaving the corporate world, what were some of the mindset shifts that you started to make to decide that, okay, this actually is what I want to do for my future?
Yeah, you make a good point of we have come a long way, but there's still a long way to come. It was challenging for me to feel like I was kind of letting go of this identity of the go-getter, the corporate, climbing the corporate ladder and having that success that we tend to believe is the important thing. And so it did take me a while to let go of that identity and realize that it wasn't serving me. And you made a point of me being lucky that I had a heart attack at 31. I do view it as that I was lucky because at that point in my life, I probably wouldn't have listened to anything less than a near-death experience. And it did take time just to figure out what else to do and to kind of experiment with a different things. So I started doing some health coaching on the side. And then once I discovered yoga and started teaching classes for some of the people, I actually started teaching in the company that I worked for people who I worked alongside, and just to see the difference in them when they came into class to when they left, and just how they carried their body and how they let some of that stress and tension melt away in that hour. It really struck me as something that was important and a gift that I could give people. So I started teaching a second class for my coworkers. And then eventually I started teaching at a local studio. And in 2015, I led my first yoga retreat in Costa Rica. And that, I think, was my big turning point. This is what I think I needed, and I think that a lot of people need, is to take that break from their day-to-day life and get out of all of the pressures and all of the things that we put on ourselves and that other people pile onto us, and just take that time for self-care and to get more connected to who we really are as individuals and what really makes us happy. And I saw this happen on retreat, and I've seen it happen again and again over the 10 years that I've been leading retreats around the world, of just that opportunity to connect to themselves, connect with other people who are like-minded individuals who care about wellness. And also, I tend to always pick locations where there's also a big connection with nature. So I think just getting people outside and connected to the natural world is another thing that helps. So again, it took time, and it took, kind of giving up on who I thought I was and what I thought was important in order to make that transition, but it was scary all along the way, especially when I decided to completely leave the corporate world. And it's, as you might know, it's tough being a small business owner. And so I'm responsible for everything. So I have to remind myself all the time, don't just take that stress that you had in the corporate world and bring it with you into your business too. So it's definitely been a journey, but it's been a very positive one, and just love seeing people light up when they realize what really makes them feel alive and feel lit up on retreat, and just taking little bits of that home with them. So I try to provide events and ways to stay connected with the community so that people can bring that back with them into their daily life.
Well, and what this all requires is that somebody actually decides that they're worth it, right? That they're worthy of making themselves the priority. Because I can already hear all the pushback. Oh, well, that's great, but I don't have time. I can't afford that. I have 3 kids. I have these big demands that I have to take care of. And okay, yep, all real life. And then you have a heart attack, and then who are you serving? Right? And it comes down to someone deciding to give themselves that permission to take care of themselves, to do something for themselves. I think we do get so used to doing what we do, feeling the way we feel, even though it's crappy, thinking, well, this is just the way it is. And it's not until you step outside of that you realize, oh, okay, well, that might be the way it is, but that's not the way it needs to be. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. And the only way it's going to be different is if I choose to do something different. And, I think we're doing better for sure. And I know generations behind mine, yours, are better at that than maybe some of us. But it's not just generational. It's also within each individual, right? Because there are people of my generation who are very much like, go with the flow. And there are Gen Zs who are, the go-go, like gonna work ourselves into the ground. So it's also a personality trait. But I really think, and my guess is you discover this too when you work with people, is it comes down to just clarifying priorities and then making choices based on what you say those priorities are. Because somehow, if it's worth it, you'll make it happen. You'll figure it out, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think helping people connect to why they want to be healthy. So helping them figure out what are their priorities, because what you prioritize, you make time for no matter what. So just being able to tie it back to what's really important to them.
And I think in your case, having that experience at such a young age, so you, at the time of your heart attack, you would have been what I call the YBI, young, beautiful, and invincible. Which, of course, look at you. You're a go-getter. You're driven. You're riding your bike 160 miles, and you're doing all the things. And Carrie's spectacular, except then Carrie has a heart attack. So she's not invincible. Now, you learn that at a super young age, which I think is awesome, because then you get the majority of the rest of your life to live it differently, versus somebody who continues to live at that pace and maybe doesn't have a significant health issue that wakes them up until they're 50 or 60. And maybe now it's harder to recover, and it's harder, and you don't have as much time to live the new version of you. So anybody listening thinking, well, that won't be me. I don't know, Carrie, did you think that would be you?
Of course not. Yeah, I did not. Even with the family history, I thought, oh, I'm way healthier than my dad.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? You do the best you can. And when you know better, you do better. And I think that's probably, you and I are very much like when I said, you're speaking my language, my whole thing is health and happiness. Those two things go together. And when you understand that you cannot, I will take this to anybody, you cannot be truly happy if you're not healthy. No way. You cannot be truly healthy if you're not happy. Nope. Doesn't work, because those two things are intricately intertwined. Now, we still live in real life. We do have real demands. We do have a mortgage to pay, and we have family members to help out and take care of, and people who rely on us. And right. So that is all real life as well. So what are some of the tips or tricks or ways that you help people navigate the real lives that they live and to still make sure this one doesn't get neglected?
Yeah, I think it's important to start with things that are really simple and break things down into things that you can do on a daily basis to start feeling better. Because you're right, health and happiness are so intricately connected. And once you start feeling a little bit better, you want to do more to continue to feel better, and you start feeling happier. So just finding small ways to bring things into your day. And movement for me is a huge thing, just moving your body and being more aware of your body. A lot of us, women in particular, kind of ignore the signs from our body. So paying more attention to what your body's telling you and just starting to move your body. And move your body in a way that brings you joy, because you're not going to, if you don't like going to the gym and you try to force yourself to go to the gym, that's only going to last for so long. You need to find things that really make you want to do them. So for example, if you love dancing, maybe that's a way to start moving your body more. And also linking things with something that you already do is a great way to start having more healthy habits in your day. So while you're brushing your teeth, you could make it a 2-minute meditation and just focus on what you're doing in the moment instead of letting your mind, run to the next thing of what you need to do next, and just start to be more present. So that's a simple way. And then I always find that people struggle with starting to eat healthier. So they think they just need to change everything all at once, but that doesn't work either. You need to just start bringing more things in. And everybody, all Americans could eat more fiber and more leafy greens. So just finding ways to, how do you maybe eat a little more spinach? So maybe it's putting it in a smoothie, or, eating a side salad with one of your meals. So just finding those ways to start bringing things in. And again, as you start to have success and feel better, it gets easier as you go.
I love all those tips. Very similar to my approach, right? Change one habit, the small baby steps. But I can already hear somebody saying, oh, well, a 2-minute meditation isn't going to change my life, so why bother doing it? A little more spinach isn't going to give me the outcome that I am looking for, so why bother doing a little more spinach? What's the point? If I don't get a result from what I do, then why should I bother doing any of those things? So what do you say to that person?
I remind them to come back to why they even came to talk to me in the first place. What is it that they want to be able to do? And just try something. And if you try something and it doesn't work, or you don't notice a difference, maybe try something else. We're not all the same, so not one thing is going to work for every single person. So I tend to just ask people a lot of questions to get to where is that resistance coming from, and how can they keep coming back to why they want to feel better, to stay connected to that, and think of those things that they will commit to and will stick with to a point where it does start to make a difference. That 2 minutes might not feel like it makes a difference the first 2 times, but maybe the 4th time or the 5th time, it starts to make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, consistent and persistent. Those are 2 critical elements to see a result, right? Nothing happens because you did one thing. Tell me what in life happens because you did one little thing. Like, that's just not realistic. And I know in the society in which we live in, people want some like magical outcome overnight because I did this magical little thing. I didn't have to really try that hard. And look, it worked. Gosh, it's one of those, it's just one of the realities that I think a lot of people don't want to accept, that truly getting to a better place, number one, takes time, takes effort, and probably takes a lot more than you think it does or that you wish it would. Which is why it's important for everyone to come back to that question you're asking, why? What is your why? What is that personally meaningful reason why you're going to do hard things? Why you're going to be consistent? Why you're going to persist? Why you're going to do this one thing and then I'm going to add this one and this one and this one? And why maybe I'm going to stop fixating on the outcome and rather circle back to, well, how am I feeling about that choice? And how am I feeling in the moment as well? What are some of the other just general challenges that you find people are up against?
I think time is a big one that I hear a lot. Is just, I don't have time. I'm so busy. I have kids. I have to get them here and there. So that's one thing. And then I think people really have to be ready. And so there have been times where I've been working with someone who I can tell they're just not quite there yet. They're not quite ready to make the changes. And, maybe it does have to be something that they experience that reminds them of why they want to be healthier, because it is tempting to just look for that quick fix, but knowing that it's hard and that it takes time and it's not always going to be perfect. And, there might be times where, you're going along and doing great, and then something happens. Like maybe you have a family member that has an emergency that you have to take care of and you kind of fall off a little bit. So I think also just remembering that it is a journey, and each step that you take forward, even if you take 2 steps back, it's still important to keep moving and to value yourself, to have that feeling of I am worth doing this for myself. Because if we don't take care of ourselves, we're not going to be any use to all the other people that we're taking care of. So it's reminding people of that too. Like, yes, you're busy because you are taking care of all these things, but you won't be able to take care of those things if you don't have your health. So where can you find that time? Where are you maybe spending time on something that isn't important or doesn't connect back with what you value? And, how can you replace that with something that's good for you?
Yeah, I hear the word finding time, or that phrase, a lot, and I don't think you find it. You choose to make it. You choose to take it. I was doing a session like this for a corporate client, and there was a gentleman who, shared, I can't because he has a daughter with high needs, and his wife was undergoing some very significant treatments for very late stages of cancer. And he was the caregiver. And he's like, I can't because I need to do this and this and this and this. And we talked about that. I said, you can't, or you're choosing not to, because. And the because is very valid, right? Mm-hmm. And yet it's still a choice that you're making. And I just challenged him to decide what is one thing you're willing to do to serve your own needs. So at the end of the session, he said, I'm going to take the time to just be with my dog. And I thought that was great. Like, so specifically, what does that look like? He said, well, when I come home, I will check in. And as long as they are okay for the moment, I am going to go out in my backyard in my peace with my dog and just be by myself for 30 minutes. And I said, okay, I love that. What is the norm right now? He's like, well, normally I come home, I see what they need. And even though they're okay, I decide that they need more. And so I choose to do more and do these things and then do the dishes. And I should start dinner. And then I should answer these emails. And I should, and I should, and I should, and I should. And so he realized that, okay, he was making that choice and he committed to choosing him, right? So it's saying yes to you. It's not saying yes to you and then just let your daughter and wife figure it out. Of course not. Right? So it is about deciding that you are worth it. And I think until people kind of step back and ask themselves that question, you just get used to doing what you do and you think, well, I can't because. And I have found in my own journey and working with lots of people, the narrative and the phrases that we use really, really matter. So do you dig into like the mindset and adjusting the mindset and the attitude and the approach when you work with people?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that really comes first, to identify what are the challenges or the things that are blocking them from doing most people already know what they need to do to be healthy, but I had to kind of giggle when you were saying, I should do this and I should do that, because we have a tendency to should all over ourselves of what we think we should be doing. And instead it's like stepping back to say, what really needs to be done? And, what's really important. And that does take a mindset shift, because we do take on all of these things that we not only put on ourselves, but that we accept in from other people too. So I think another important thing that I work with people on is setting boundaries and protecting their time and their space.
Yeah. I always say the mind is the hardest thing to change. Unless and until you change it, nothing else does. Once you change it, everything else does. And it's a process, right? It doesn't just, you flip a switch and your mindset has changed either. It's a choice to change your mindset. The willingness to be open to the idea that you actually can change your mindset. And even that, getting someone to that point can be a big piece of the journey. Yeah. I would love to hear a little more before we wrap up about the Pawsitive perspective. Tell me a little bit about the insights from your rescue dog.
Yeah, so I've got a copy of it here. This is my girl Ella. So Ella was definitely my soul dog. When I moved to Colorado, I didn't know anybody, and for about the first year or so, I lived in an apartment. But as soon as I bought a house, I'd always grown up with animals, so I couldn't wait to get a dog. And I went to the local shelter and found Ella, who was about 5 months old at the time. And we spent the next 15 years together. And she went through all of this change with me. She was with me during that time period when I survived my heart attack and started making all these changes. And when she passed away a few years ago, I just started writing down stories about her because she was a very unique dog, had a very interesting personality. She was very different than any dog I'd ever known in my life. And I wanted to remember her. And as I was writing, I was like, I really learned a lot from her. Like all of these things that I was going through, she was reminding me of what the important things are in life. So I ended up writing an article for Elephant Journal, the online publication, about the top 10 things that I learned from my rescue dog. And I received a lot of great feedback from that because anybody who has had that soul connection with a pet knows that it's a very deep bond. And so it encouraged me to just keep writing. And before I knew it, I had 40 lessons from Ella, and I decided to put them into a book. And as I was putting the stories together and the lessons together, I also realized that she wouldn't have it any other way. I needed to tell it from her point of view. So all of the chapters each chapter is a lesson that I learned from her, told from her point of view. And it takes you through our 15-year journey together.
I love that. Can you share maybe just a couple of the lessons?
Yeah. So one of my favorites is be yourself without apology. As I mentioned, Ella was a very unique dog. She didn't really like the things that you might expect a dog to like playing fetch or wrestling with other dogs. And so just a reminder to be yourself. Also, we used to hike a lot, and she always was very eager to get to the destination, but she also reminded me to stop and take time to enjoy the journey along the way. She would always stop and look out over the vistas and, stop and sniff things. So those are a couple of my favorites of just be yourself and remember to take the time to enjoy the journey. Also, later in her life, Ella had what we think was degenerative myelopathy. It started to impact her back legs. So her last about 6 to 8 months, she had to start using a wheelchair or walking wheels. So she had wheels so that she could still adventure. And so another one of the lessons is never stop exploring and be resilient, because she didn't let that little setback stop her from enjoying life.
I love that. And I imagine writing all of that was really helpful for your grieving process, as well as August is National Grief Awareness Month as well. So I love that. It's beautiful. So thank you for sharing all of that. Is there anything before we officially sign off that we haven't covered that you think would be really important for the audience to hear?
I think we covered a lot. I just, reminder to women to know all of their risk factors for heart disease and know the signs and symptoms of a heart attack and listen to your body.
Excellent tips, things that I teach and preach all the time. So I know my listeners are doing that. Maybe you're a brand new listener, and if you haven't done that yet, I don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, Carrie is a very powerful voice for that message. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing. And everybody listening, now it is your time to go and be a better being.
Thank you for listening to the Be a Better Being podcast. We hope that what you heard today inspires you to embrace this journey of life with an open mind, a kind heart, and a willingness to learn and evolve. If you have a show topic idea or would like to be a guest, please visit betterbeings.net and fill out a contact form. Until next time, go and be a better being.